call this meeting of the Government Operations and Ordinances Committee to order. We're here this evening to review some no parking guidelines or suggestions on 3 different streets, one being Moulton Street, one being Centenary Ave, and one being Haven. I think I'm going to take these one at a time, as opposed to bundling them all together. I think it would be easier for people to speak as a group as opposed to all over the place. So I think the first one we're going to deal with is going to be Moulton Ave, or Moulton Street. As you're all aware, we've gotten a request to make it, because it is so narrow, to make it no parking on either side of the street. We've gotten a few letters, a few emails on this. Both of the ones that I have copies of actually are in favor of making it no parking. They're residents or have businesses that are adjacent to the street itself. So, council comments? Anybody have any input?
I have gotten the same thing, so I haven't had anybody call me against it. It's all in favor of keeping that street open for emergency.
And Councilor Bounds?
Yeah, there's a sidewalk on Moulton Street, and is this request for all of Moulton Street, or for somewhere after that little park that is next to the Wild Trail?
I think it's on your map, on the colored map.
No, this one.
It's
This one.
section right here.
Proposed this section. Okay? Okay.
That was my question.
Okay, so I'd like to open this up to any public comment about this. Okay, sir, would you come up and state your name for the record, please? Yes, either one.
Raymond Masso. I live at 22 Moulton Street in Laconia here. As you can see on this chart, there's a yellow line there. And that is a sidewalk, just about where it is. And when people park out there, people have trouble coming out onto the street to go down the street. And this has been a big issue. And it's very tight if cars are parking in that area on the street. You know, if a fire truck was to come up through, or an ambulance.
Anything.
Yeah, it's just
Yeah.
unreasonable. And going toward the expo, you can see that big expo building there. Would like to see no parking going up to where they turn into that turnaround there. On that side of the street, and then all the way down to that other mark there. No parking on either side of the street. The streets get wider on either side of that, you know, at that point there. And it has been a problem. There were some people living in a house, they're not there no longer, but they had parking for probably 2 cars in their yard, and there was always 4 to 5 cars there, so there was always parking in the street, and my neighbor could never get out of her driveway. Always had to call and asked to have them moved so she could get out of her driveway, and that was probably one of the letters you got for Robin Ross. And that's a real problem for them. I live a little further up the street, and it's not that much of a problem for me, but I mean here on her behalf and for the safety of the street as well.
Plus the emergency vehicles.
Emergency vehicles, yeah. So that's my claim to fame.
As you come down Moulton Street from Union Avenue, when just before you get to the Lakes Region
Expo?
Yeah, just before you get to there's an area right across the street from one of the houses.
That's my house.
Is that your house?
Yes.
Do you use...
I have a right for parking there. I own part of the land.
Okay.
I gave some back to the city, but I have room for tenant parking there, so...
Because it looks like it could hold like 4 or 5 cars.
It could.
And so you're not, you don't want this to be no parking there. You want to use that for whatever
Sidewalk
rights you
parking.
have.
Yeah, no, well, that's That's private land there. I own the land there on the other side of the street. But it would be parking out in the street, because there's a sidewalk out there.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I think we're good.
Okay.
Anybody else have any?
It is a nuisance, so
Aye.
it really is.
There is.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other input? Okay. Luke, what does DPW think about this?
That is a very narrow area, and we would have no issues with that request.
Okay. Okay. So why don't we discuss this right now? What's any thoughts on this, what we should do with this one?
Yeah, I think we ought to make it no parking.
Okay.
I think it's a good idea to make it no parking where they've marked it out, and all the way down to the...
To the gate.
Center,
Yeah.
as they pointed out here.
Is there a motion?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
All right?
Opposed? Okay, we're good. Okay, this is a recommendation, I should say, to go to the full council. It's not a done deal.
That's right.
Yet. We will take it to council, report this evening, and then it'll probably go through, be recommended for a public hearing.
Need a public hearing.
And then
on
we
the
go from
ordinance change on this, yes.
Okay, so that is Moulton Street. So next, we're going to take up Haven Ave. We've heard a request that this should be made also no parking on the street. It is a 16-foot wide street, and I believe there are 3 residences on there, I believe.
I think there's 2 that share one lot, but I think there's a total of 3 physical
3
properties.
physical properties, okay.
Yes.
Okay, so, thoughts on this, council?
Well, I think I'd like to hear from the public
Okay.
first to see what
We're
they
going to
have
hear from
to
the
say.
public first before we discuss?
However you like to do it.
Okay. Is anyone here to speak on Haven Ave? Okay, please come up.
For the record, my name is Lori Sanborn, and I own a property on Haven Avenue, and we are opposed, my husband and I own it, and we are opposed to restricting parking on the street. We bought the property about a year ago, knowing that the garage was way too small to put a vehicle in it. It's very, very small, very narrow, will not fit any modern vehicle. I think it basically fits a motorcycle. And the little bit of a space behind the garage, there is no room to park there without being out into the street as well. We bought the property knowing this because we also specifically knew that we could park on the street. So this would be a huge hardship to take away the parking rights on the street. It's the only way we can really utilize the property. I do believe if you take away parking rights on the street, you devalue the property quite a bit, because it really hampers use. So it would devalue the property for me, but it could also devalue the property for the city and for tax revenues. And I think, as you said, there's only 3 property owners on this street. This is a very short street. Myself and this other property owner at the very end, right on the water. So it's not like there's a whole lot of through traffic. I've never seen an issue with safety vehicles or anything else being able to get down there. You know, we always pull over as much as we can to the side, and I don't think it's been an issue at all. So I'm opposed, and just so you know, so I'm at 17 Haven Ave, which is kind of on the right side on the water. The person at 18 Haven Ave could not be here tonight. Her name is Deb Evans. She has submitted some written testimony that I'll submit for you as well. She is also opposed to this. So if you don't mind, I'll hand that in.
Yeah, please do.
Okay, great. Are there any questions for me?
How many, I take it you're the house on the right? as you
Yeah,
go
so if you
down?
drive down the street to the water, we're on the right, and the other is Deb Evans at 18.
Okay.
If you look at your overhead map there, Counselor, that one, you've got your hand on it,
Yeah.
that will point them out for you.
Yeah. And how many vehicles does your residence use? How many vehicle spaces does your residence need?
Well, generally, I mean, it's just my husband and I there. We don't have any children, so generally, we come together. But it would be nice occasionally to be able to have my parents come over, or, so it'd be 1 or 2 vehicles coming to use my house.
So you've never seen any problems with any vehicles, any emergency vehicles getting down there? There's no
No problems.
issues at all?
No problems.
Okay. Okay.
Because really, the only people coming down that far to on that street are the people who own those 2 houses.
And what about the undeveloped property on that street? Is that owned also by, I mean,
not
it looks like there's some vacant lots, or are they just large lots?
I'm not aware of a vacant lot. I don't know the ownership.
What am I thinking of?
I think the Sanborn's property, if you look at this map here, coming down in their house on the right with the birch tree running at roughly 11 o'clock, I believe their lot has an opening coming down, but that's one lot that
Okay.
runs basically.
Yeah, it's one big,
Right,
it's
so
one
the
lot.
vacant
and-
area up here is part of your lot.
If you call it vacant, but there's a bunch of trees that I
Right.
can't cut down because of shoreline
Right.
protection, and there's a big hump of earth, so,
Yeah, but it's your property.
yes, it
Okay,
is our
that's
property.
what
I
I
can't-
thought.
It's like, it's not a parking lot, yeah.
Not a separate lot, yes.
So there's no further development on that street then?
Not, I don't
Okay.
think there would be any. There's no
Okay.
space to do that.
Okay.
Okay, great,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
Anybody else? Anyone else want to speak to Haven? Okay.
My name's Cynthia Vera. I live at 16 Haven Ave, and I do have a concern with safety issues. People are parking at the end of the road. They leave their vehicles there all night long, and there's no one to remove them if there was a safety issue. So that is my concern, and I do share the road, because my stairs fall right down onto Haven Ave.
Okay. Are they parking in front of your property?
Sometimes, yes. It's a very small area. I have been corresponding with Brandy Laughlin and Mrs. Brown for like the last 2 years.
Is this the picture we're looking at here, ma'am?
I didn't submit that picture.
No, I know you didn't submit it, but is this the one?
The one underneath might have been mine.
The picture with the 2 vehicles and the
Yes.
grill is one that
Correct.
Ms. Vera submitted, and I'll actually give you a copy if you want. This is an
Correct.
overhead view with a map, if you would like this copy as well. If anybody's else interested in Haven and wants a overhead view of the map, I've got that.
I also would like to say that we have offered
That's these two.
parking to these people so that they would not be obstructing.
This is Centenary. Here, let me see that.
But they're parking right at the end of the street.
Correct.
So how can anything go beyond that?
They can't. Nothing can go beyond that.
That's what I'm saying, so. I don't-
And in the same essence, we should have the rights to park on that road as well, is what I'm gathering. There's been many medical emergencies down there. Yes, really.
Well, I guess I'd like to hear from other people if other people have.
If there is anyone else here?
And not to mention, if they have visitors, they're going to keep filling up the road, you know? So, I mean, how far do you want to allow parking? The whole road's turning into a parking lot.
I do see a grill here, and it looks like a table must be here with a flag on it, or umbrella, or
That's-
whatever.
That is the side of our house, correct.
And there's no other place to put those out of the way?
They're not in the way.
They look like they're very close to the asphalt. Scott, or maybe, he
I
would know.
have other pictures if you
The
want to
width of
see
the
them.
street, is that all that is owned by the street? Is there any?
If you looked at the aerial view map that you have, that's an overhead view coming right down on where the street is and where the property line is, and you can see it's a very tight street there. So if you look at the property all the way,
This is my stairs here, and that's the road.
so if you do look at the property at 18, which is the one with the two, at the top closest to the lake with the two gray stoops or sets of stairs coming out, I mean, those come what appears to be right to the property line of the map of the city street. If you go back up to the property at 1416, which is the one Ms. Vera is referring to, I can't say this is within 1-inch accuracy, but this pictorial software is within several inches of accuracy, and it does appear that some of those pavers, the grill, and the table are actually in the right-of-way of the city street. So it is narrow down there, but if you look at the two vehicles in this picture, I don't know how you fit those on the land that is available there. I think some of the houses go back to the late 1800s, if I'm not mistaken. Times have changed, but those are the available lots. So I think, just at least from the picture, and this is a picture that Ms. Vera submitted, it seems like the vehicles are pulled over to the side as far as probably is reasonable for being able to get doors open and doing that. I can't speak to multiple cars beyond that, but you can see from the overhead view, it is a very tight street where some steps are to the property line, and at least from this, it appears that table, grill, some landscape pavers appear to be in the city street.
As
So-
the vehicles as well.
So, were there any staff recommendations on this?
Staff says it's a narrow street, but knowing that it's not a through street to traffic, and then the picture that accompanied with it is if there's concern about emergency vehicles being able to get beyond, I'm not sure where emergency vehicles would be
Able to get
getting
down?
beyond to,
Yeah.
other than accessing down to a beach or a dock. There's a patio area down there. Realistically, again, only focusing on this photo here, and not to say that cars potentially couldn't be on both sides of the streets up and down, but that's not the complaint that we've heard. We're not seeing the fact that under normal conditions, emergency vehicles couldn't get fairly close to the edge of water if needed. Could they potentially go another 12 or 16 feet if two vehicles weren't there? Yes, in the big picture, I don't know
If they would,
how,
would
if they
though?
would, or how much of a difference that would make. So I can't speak to emergency services, but from staff, it really is a very quiet street. You've got three property owners who have a legal address or a property address on Haven.
The fire department didn't have any issues here? Or?
No, I mean, there's a lot, you can mirror this on other streets running up and down through that end. Whether it's Simpson or, I'm trying to blank something.
Kingsley, Baker.
Kingsley, yeah, there's a whole run of them down there.
Yeah, I know.
Fisk and...
But you say where it looks like a grill and a table set up there, that's on city property?
The overhead view, I can't say with 100% accuracy, but this pictometry software is to a matter of inches, less than a foot. To me, that would appear that there's a significant amount of items that are there that would appear to be in the city street. And that photo was taken this spring. It was on April 18th. I can't tell you that they're there today, but that's when we did the flyover mapping as part of our software program. So as of that date in April, that's what the picture looked like from the sky.
Okay.
There's a lot of the area that's marked. I'm never going to do that.
I'd love to hear your voice.
Yeah. There's a lot of the area that's marked on Centenary Avenue and on some other streets, parking for residents or guests only, parking for residents only. Is that feasible here? And if we were to do it, wouldn't we do it consistently with all those streets down there? Because, when I drove down there, every street that goes down to the waterfront is well, not virtually identical, but presents the same narrow street issues that this one particular street does. And some of them are marked parking residents only. No parking residents only.
I'm going to look to the city clerk. I'm not aware that we have any resident sticker parking identifying streets. I know in some bigger cities, Boston has neighborhood parking and those types of things. I'm not aware that we do.
We have signs up there right now that say residents only. I don't know if those are city signs or
We're not.
private
I'm looking at
signs.
Paul from Public Works, and he's,
Private.
Is that residents taking their own no parking rules?
I'm not aware of that signage, Counselor. One thing I just wanted to point out with the, Scott is correct with the accuracy of the pictometry. I just want to caution you, though, with the accuracy of the tax map lines. They are plus or minus probably a few feet. The pictometry is accurate with its relative position on the Earth's surface, but those representations of the right-of-way lines, property lines, they can be a little bit off. So that's just an important thing to keep in mind. So when you look at the patio or the grill encroaching into the right-of-way, those are correctly shown on the photos, but that right-of-way line might actually be in a slightly different place. It could be, it's not meant for that survey grade type of representation.
good point. Good
Thank
point.
you.
Thank you.
What's that post with the red ball on it? What's that there?
That was just a map search that just showed when we were searching for a specific street address, and that's how it located it on the map. It's a pin.
It's just a pin. Okay. Okay, anyone else? Please come up.
My name is Anthony DiCalagero, and I'm a full-time resident there on Haven Ave. I own number 16 and number 14. That's actually what we're talking about now. A long-time resident, and then prior to that, I used to come up like the prior speakers. Well, not the previous one was a full-time resident too, but Laura, who I consider a good friend, she moved up about a year ago. The history on that road is, number one, the city of Laconia, I should say the DPW city of Laconia, in the infinite but incorrect wisdom, and I get along great with Paul Monahan, a lot of DPW people, I have a lot of respect for them, so I'm not in no way picking a fight with them. They incorrectly, you talk about signage, put all those areas, all those side streets as dead ends. Well, in reality, it is not a dead end. Reality is, and if you look at the city assessor map, there's Coolidge Ave that goes across the street, across the front of the lake, which is a right-of-way. Technically, you're supposed to be able to drive down, drive around any one of those streets. People have encroached over the years, and that's put picnic tables there, some even built walls, and now people don't turn around anymore there. I, being the first driveway there, they have backed up over the years. First driveway they come to, they backed into my yard. When my daughter was younger, she almost got ran over. I found dents in my cars over the years. It looks good there, only 2 cars, and I have nothing against either one of my neighbors. But when they have renters, not the new neighbor, Laura, she's not, but the other one rents out, and they tried their best, but they're not there. Cars pile up. I've had it almost back to the end of Centenary Ave, where I had to go and ask people to move. It takes an hour and a half, 2 hours to move. Yes, that becomes a safety problem. Emergency vehicles can't get in there. Ambulances, they do there, they have to walk all the way down and then over because they're encroached. So, like I said, there could be a problem there. And I don't want to be battling my neighbors anymore. I don't want any problems, but I think it is a problem with parking there. There's other arrangements. There's other vacant spaces that can be used for parking. And at one time, like I said, when I lived there, I used to live there myself at 16, before I built a new home and back. The new owner, the present owner, is very cognizant of that and very, very cooperative. Prior owners, not so much. The prior owner, he'd do everything he can to just back his traffic and all. He even had a boat trailer there we used for 3 or 4 days, people visit him, and left that parked there. So you can't leave it up to the discretion of people whether they're going to be nice or not. I feel that there should be a ban on that because it doesn't tolerate it. When you have 1 or 2 cars there, it doesn't seem like a problem, but when you park up and they rent a lot, there's a rental. This is the season for rental. When they back those cars up, they block my driveway, I can't even get out. And then they're down the weirs or something, you can't find them. I don't think I should have to tolerate that, and anybody else. So if I had a voice, number one, maybe I'd do something about opening up those roads so they can drive around, instead of backing up all the way and backing into my yard to go out. I'd put cones across there to stop them from doing that. I have little grandkids that go in that yard. And I gotta also say something. These people up here vacationing, they're making bear runs, maybe ice runs, and their motor skills may be somewhat impaired. I'm not gonna be sitting there being monitored of that. And that's why I ended up with a dent, I believe. I never who did it, but I'm not feeling warm and comfortable with my grandkids even fooling around there when we have this situation. It's not all the time, but all it takes is once. So I am not in favor of having that parking on that street at all. And I've opened up my yard to people who want to park there, even renters. I have a good-sized parking area there. Across the street, there's good-sized parking areas, and people that own the front, left, 17, their parents own that big lot across the way up there. They had a place to park. And I said, when I was there, they were very cognizant of doing that. For some reason, it's changed. My vote is, one, I'd love to see the roads open up and make it a drive-through and drive around, which is supposed to be. It was a subdivision set up that way. And now it's been encroached upon, and people just think it's a dead end, and the city put dead end signs up, or somebody put them up. And as far as the other signs goes, people put signs up whenever they want. They take them, so I would say no parking there. Thank you.
Where do you live again?
I own number 16 and 14.
It's two here.
The ones, this and this.
16?
And 14. One of the speakers that came up tonight, she's my tenant, so that's who she's living in 16.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Hi, my name's Diane Verkaman. My sister owns 17 Haven Ave, and she wrote a letter to you. She's unable to be here today. And if you look in the pictures, her car is the blue Jeep. If you look carefully, she's parked basically on the grass. And if you look in the overhead picture, the overview, she has 2 sets of stairs coming from her property. She parks between those sets of stairs. And most often, I'll let you know when she is here. My parents own number 34 Centenary Ave. I own number 36 Centenary Ave. We also own 68 Centenary Ave, as well as 49 Centenary Ave. 49 Centenary Ave is where the overflow parking happens for 17 Haven Ave. So 49 Centenary Ave is a corner lot for Haven Ave. So when my sister has any overflow parking, they park on Haven Ave, which is the end of the property of 49 Centenary Ave, which is not shown on the map. In the time that we've owned the property, there's only been 2 instances of emergency vehicles needing to get to the property. And at one point, it was at Mr. DeCaligero's property, in which my father fell, and an ambulance came right in and was comfortable and fine. The other time that an ambulance came was to 18 Haven Ave, which is now Laurie's property, and there was no... You're 17. Debbie's 18. Yeah. So it came to 17 Haven Ave, and there was not a problem as well. I have one more thing. I really feel like with putting this as a no parking zone or area, you're opening up a whole can of worms for that whole area. If you drive down each street, each side street, everybody parks the same. And I'm not quite sure how you can say no parking on one street and let the rest of the streets all have parking. The other thing that I'd like to say is that Mr. DeCaligero's property line goes from Haven Ave to Fisk Ave. He's not concerned currently about parking on Fisk Ave, which also has the same property problem. Everybody parks at the end of Fisk Ave. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Yes, I have.
Okay.
Couple of points brought out. Number one, if you look at that, where the grill is, I meant to say that earlier, the grill and everything else, those steps that come down from my property and the property from number 18, that she has two sets of stairs, those are very, very close to the city line, if not on the city line. They've been there for years and years and years, and that grill and that table, as I believe, is on the inside of the stairs, so nobody can park there anyways. And as far as the parking on the grass, there's still half, even with my neighbor at 18, when they do park there, and I'm not just talking her, she only comes up on rare occasion. I'm talking about when there's rented, and there's people that rent, and they back these cars up. They don't park like she does. She's cognizant of that. But they do not. And they take the street up. And then everybody follows in behind them. And yes, I own the properties between Fisk and Haven. And Fisk is a dirt road. And the people use that down there. And my thing is, I'm not speaking on it because it's not on the agenda here today. If there are other streets on the agenda, I'm sure you have other people speaking their concerns. But the ones that are on the agenda today is the ones we're talking about. So you can't put all of them on a broad stroke, I understand, but we're talking about the ones that are on the issues here, and that's the one we're addressing, and that's my points on it. I said, and I can drive through, but I have to move my car to get my vehicle out of the one that's at Haven Ave. When they back that traffic up, I shouldn't be having to do that. I should be able to drive right out of my driveway and go on the road. And a lot of times, and again, I appreciate the new owner, she hasn't experienced this yet, and it doesn't happen a lot. Well, it does happen a lot, but not since she's been here. And that's the issue. And so I would say, please, make it no parking.
Is there a chance, and I guess this would be either for the city manager or for Luke to answer, that part of the road could be no parking? So that there would be able to have two-way traffic up to a point?
So you're talking on one side of the road, no parking?
There's no two-way allowed there. I mean, there's not room for it. Don't tolerate it.
No, I
Talking
mean,
one
like
side or just a certain stretch of?
a certain stretch, like we've done in other areas. Is that possible?
I mean, anything's possible. I think what happens then is you've taken away some parking in front of someone's property that they feel they should be entitled to if it's available somewhere else. A lot of times, if you make no parking in a certain area, it's almost like squeezing a balloon. You change it here, and people have the need to park, and they're going to go starting to fill in parking on streets where they're not living or renting or visiting, and then I think you're going to be hearing from a lot of the other streets that maybe are tight right now to begin with, that we've just shifted a parking problem down the block.
Okay. Okay. Thoughts, comments?
I don't know how we can satisfy everybody and anybody in this type of a situation, but Coolidge Ave, is that what's supposed to be the throughway all the way around up onto Fisk Ave?
I'm going to defer to Luke on that one if he's got an answer.
That's a paper street. It has never been developed. I'm not even sure what the status of that is. It would probably take some legal research to figure that out.
I know Counselor Doyle and I went and walked a little bit further up, and we were looking for something called the
The bridle path.
bridle path, and
You don't get married there anymore.
well, but I think it used to be maybe agreement with neighbors that had some archways, and there's maybe a gentleman's agreement within the neighborhood that people used to be able to go in front of properties, and they had some arches and rose bushes growing, and so we think it was bridle AL, not bridle LE, but over the years and looking at that, and Kevin Dunleavy sent a nice article or postcard that came out of someone's collection back to the 40s, and there's nothing there that was deeded we could find. There was maybe an agreement back in the day, but similarly, people have put up gates or benches or things to look like they were encroaching, but there was nothing legal there. Coolidge, we could do some research if the council wants onto the status. We don't have anything prepared for you tonight.
Yes.
I just wonder if that would be a way to ease all of that.
I mean, I've walked down there when I went to look at that, that's pretty tight, is to try to make that a path or a road that's going to handle vehicles that close to the edge of the shore. I think challenging would be an understatement of a word to try to have vehicles operate down there. Whether or not it should be a right-of-way for pedestrians, again, we'd have to look into the legality of where that stands today and whether or not it was set up and ownership reverted back to, abutters or however it is. But I would say the likelihood of ever having vehicles down there is...
Pretty slim. Yes, ma'am.
My name is Pam Cott. I live at 35 Centenary Avenue and 21 Morris Ave in the Weirs, and I have been here at these properties since, at 35 Centenary Ave since I was 10 years old. I learned to drive on Coolidge Avenue, and you could start at Fisk Ave and drive. There was another Ave that they gave to Aqua Soleil, but there were Fisk Ave, and then another street beyond that. Now we just have Fisk is the last one in that section, and you could turn down and go all the way to Morris Ave, and then the road stopped and you'd come up Morris Ave. And I used to just practice driving around in a circle before I got my license. And through the years, some people have purchased the roads in that area from the railroad company, the timbering company that owned all of that land. And so some of those properties in front, Coolidge Ave, in front of some of the homes have been bought by those homeowners. So, and some of them are in the process of being bought. So there's an answer to your question.
Thank you.
Interesting.
So, what is council's pleasure? Or
I don't
committee's
know that we
pleasure?
can make a decision here until we really look into it further. I don't know how much further we can go, but it's a tough, I don't know. I really don't know how we can fix it. Unless we get helicopters, thing, but,
Councilor Bounds?
Well, I just don't see how we can address this piecemeal. I mean, if we're going to address it, then we really have to take in that whole area and the access that each of those streets has to the waterfront, so to speak. And that seems like a daunting task, but I don't think we can just pick Haven Avenue and say, we can fix this problem here, and ignore Fisk Avenue and all the other roadways down there, because they're all the same. So either we not recommend the changes at now, or perhaps table it if we want to take it up on a more universal basis.
With a little more information?
Yeah.
Okay. Are you making that motion?
I'll make the motion as long as we include all the other roadways that come off Centenary Avenue down to the lake.
Okay.
I agree. I think we've got to look at it real close and see what else we can do to help all of those streets out there, because they are very narrow. We've never had a problem up until now, and they've been there quite a while.
So that was a motion?
That's
And
my
that was a
motion.
second?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. We're going to table this.
I do have an assessed map here that shows Green Street Road. Which was initially, this was set up as Winnipesaukee Meeting Campground Association. And if you look at the history, and there's been court battles on this, trust me, I have. These were all right-of-ways. Now, people were able to buy these right-of-ways when the campground got out. But the right-of-way existed. It wasn't extinguished merely because it was sold or people bought it. The right-of-ways existed because there were agreement when it was sold from Winnipesaukee to people that bought different properties, and one way or the other was sold that you owned right. It was like a condo, and there's roads that are common. Everybody who lives in that condo have rights of way to those roads. This was basically set up the same way.
Why don't you, see if you have that, access to that information?
Well, right here is
Why
the
don't you-
assessors map that shows all, Coolidge and all that being part of that
Okay.
thing. The other thing that I was going to bring up too was this It's not a matter of, like I say, like to say, like ownership. It's a matter of, does a right-of-way exist there? People encroached on them, and people didn't do stuff about it. Some people did. There were court cases on this. Reagan versus Kardashian, this court cases,
Yep, this
Supreme
is-
Court cases.
Could you send that to the city manager's office for distribution?
I
We
don't
can
have that
start
case with
looking
me
at that.
myself, but I do have cases, yes, that they said that. I will send you a case that
Okay.
says that they're all,
Send us that information,
I
and
will.
we can move on from there.
I will give that to you.
We want to do what's right.
I understand, and I'm just saying, give me the information, but it's not just a matter of now, and I agree with, like I said, all the speakers here, even though I disagree with their conclusion, but I do agree with what a lot of them saying, but it is a subdivision, they are right-of-ways, and over the years, people took advantage, and they purposely blocked them off. It's not right, but that's what I'm trying to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so the third,
Just if anything, anybody else has any of that information,
yes.
please send it to the
Send
city
it to us
manager.
so we can work on this. All right, so the final property, or the final street that we're going to be looking at is Centenary Ave. There seems to be problems also with parking. I had shown Armin this, I don't know if you had seen these as well, okay. Where some of the streets, because Centenary Ave is a through street, and there are pinch points in there where cars, if they park on both sides of the street, it really is impossible for someone to get through. But we're here to take public comment as to whether we're going to make no parking one side, both sides, parts of the street, or where. So anybody in the council have anything to say first before we open it up?
If you make parking on one side, is there enough room for vehicles to get
It
through the
would
other?
depend upon, I believe, the parts of the street, or the
On the print here,
side.
it looks like it's wider than these other streets, but I don't know how much wider.
Okay, so with that, let's open it up. Is there anyone here would like to give public comment? Oh, okay. Ms. Cott?
Back in the 1980s, I fought this same battle with parking on Centenary Avenue because my front door is on Centenary Avenue, as many others are. And I took pictures, and I came before this, I think it was Wes Colby was my representative at the time. And
Is the mayor.
they decided back then that they should have no parking on Centenary Avenue unless you could pull off the pavement. Your wheels had to be off the pavement so that vehicles could go through. And I guess it's been lost in the shuffle through the years, but that's what they decided back in the 80s.
Okay. Yes, sir?
My name's Andrew Giovanni. I live at 74 Centenary, across from the Aqua Marina. And I guess just to give you some background, before the marina was built, it was no parking on both sides of the street. And when it was no parking on both sides of the street, that was when there was a field across the street, and there was no building within 10 feet of the road, and there was no boulders lining the street. So at that time, it's like it was no parking. When the Aqua Marina was built, those signs got taken down somehow, and after the marina was built, they didn't get put back up. My side of the street, which is on the opposite side of the marina, has always been no parking, and it still is. On my side of the street, there's a no parking sign when you first turn the corner, and then there's not another one until after my house. So people have been parking on this side. I've asked Mr. Moynihan before to put a parking sign, a no parking sign by my driveway, but it's like on the pictures that I've showed you, sometimes there's people parked on my side of the street and that side of the street, and there's literally about this much room for a car to get by, and I've seen vehicles have to back up, back down the street, and go back around. So I'd like to have both sides back to no parking like they were, because when they were no parking on both sides, there was actually enough room for cars to get by, and they made it no parking. And that happened since I've lived there, because originally when I first lived there, it was parking on the other side of the street. And then one year, like around Bike Week, all of a sudden that sign showed up, and there was bikes that were parked off the road, and they were picked up and put on a flatbed truck and drove away. So, I guess.
Where is your residence located?
It's right across the street from the double doors of the Aqua Marina.
This is, okay,
I'm the one who sent the pictures in.
this is yours, right?
Right.
This is your house with...
No, that's
back-
not my house. I live next to that.
Next
That's
to
Mr.
that,
Mayhew's
okay.
house now.
Right in here. Right down from Fisk and Haven. Okay. Okay. And then that's the, okay. Is anything else you'd like to add?
Nope, other than that, I'd like it.
You'd like
Them
to
to
see
both
it
be no
back to-
parking, right?
No parking on both
Especially
sides.
since those boulders are there now. It's hard, like in the wintertime, they don't even plow the street like as wide as they used to because they're afraid of hitting those boulders.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you. Anyone else?
Hi, Wendy Spencer Carter, 48 Centenary. My concern is safety. The parking, other people are having problems. I have an extra lot, and my lot is just about full every weekend because families have people coming, or the family themselves have too many cars. So I help out many people as far as parking in my empty lot. I used to say my grass is lousy, but I do that for them. I lost my husband a couple of years ago. I called 911 many times. And sometimes they came with a delay because they couldn't make that corner at the end at Aqua Marina. They made it, but it made, it was an extra 5 minutes of them coming. The chain is across for the tourists on the boulevard, Weirs Boulevard, and they can't go over the wooden bridge. So the other entrance is at the end of Centenary Avenue, and it's a very poor entrance to Centenary. Very steep. I have a Cadillac. I'm not bragging. What I'm saying is I've bottomed out. So now in order to get into Centenary Avenue and not the bridge, because many times the bridge is blocked with tourists and they don't know the area and they don't know if they can squeeze and both fit. If you go slow enough, you pray you fit. But I have to go all the way over to, it's a white home on the wrong side of the street so that I don't bottom out the car. Now someone else with a sports car, I'm sure plenty of them are wiped out. I know that bikers, I've been there 33 years, and I know that bikers, many bikers have fallen because all of a sudden the road just sinks in before the railroad track, and that's Centenary Avenue. Parking in front of my house, no, I don't want it, but this is a huge can of worms that's absolutely horrendous. The fire trucks not being able to get through. My husband was a retired lieutenant in Massachusetts Fire Department, and he was always very nervous about fires happening at the cottages. He was one for saying if one lights up, he said the place is going to go like a matchbook. And I truly feel in a temperature area that we've got right now, everything's dry, very dry. I think this year he may be correct. Yeah, the fire trucks coming, it's not healthy. It's not healthy at all.
Okay.
I would hate to see another Alton Bay catastrophe here at the Weirs. And I think you all know what I'm talking about. And all it takes is a propane tank, which happened to me this summer. My Rhino tank was leaking, thinking it was the grill. And we turned it on again, and it was a 4-foot flame coming out, and I could have lost the house and lost the rest of the neighborhood for everybody else. It's an issue. I mean, it happened to me, and I'm a wife of a firefighter, and I got all the rules and regulations in my head. And I have a 100-foot hose because if there's a fire, we keep our water on all the time, only because of the lessons I've had through the years from firefighters.
Okay, well, thank you. Anyone else?
Hold up.
Is there someone over there? Okay.
Kurt Mayu from Aquamarine Yacht Club and a few of the homes in the area at the end of Centenary Ave and on Scenic.
Can't hear
Could you
you.
speak up, please?
Oh, sorry, can you hear me now?
Thank you.
We don't have a problem. We thought it was no parking on that street too, just like they thought. So I don't, as long as people, are parking, I think that this lady over here probably had the best idea that they decided in the 80s, as long as you're off the asphalt, and it should continue down the entire Centenary Ave. So it start, at Scenic and go all the way down to the Weirs where the railroad tracks are. I agree with the sentiment. Whatever you guys decide, why pick and choose areas? You know what I mean? And it would make sense to get a no parking sign in front of this gentleman's house. So the marina, we don't have any problem with it. I mean, we've towed cars. People, people park poorly, I suppose. A couple other requests we might have would be a speed limit sign. Sometimes that you get, I don't think they're residents, but you get some people that really move quite fast on bikes and stuff like that in that area. I think they get drastically past 40, which is cruising down there. And then we do, as a business, we do need to be able to unload and load stuff like that, but that's temporary, 10, 15 minutes. Just like anywhere in all of Weirs, when they unload for the tractor trailers, they just about block off, a dozen or so parking spots right in Weirs, and when they pull a UE, they literally block off the whole street. So we try and minimize that and then are constantly trying to improve upon our loading and unloading, but it is something that's a necessary evil, but it's a temporary thing that happens, short amount of time.
Staff. Okay,
Okay, thank you.
thank you. Anyone else like to speak on this, please?
Hi, I'm Cindy DeCalagero, and I live at 14 Haven Ave. And what he just said about his trucks parking on Centenary to unload, that 10 or 15 minutes that they're unloading, and if there's a fire truck that needs to get down there or an ambulance, that's going to be a problem. Somebody's going to get hurt. Okay? Somebody's going to get hurt.
Okay,
That's what I have to say.
thank you. Okay, Mr. Myers, staff recommends,
I think we
recommendation?
can look to Luke Powell on thoughts on Centenary.
Sure, I've been up and down Centenary many times. It is very narrow. The state speed limit, if a road is not posted otherwise, is 30 miles an hour. That's probably pretty fast for that road. And I think no parking makes a lot of sense on both sides. It's hard to get through up there. And that is critical for two-way traffic because there is no outlet. You cannot go and exit by Week Street and for a good part of the year. So it's a I think a good candidate for no parking.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Actually, we petitioned the city before. There is 25.
Could you?
On Centenary Avenue.
You need to get up to the microphone, please. I'm sorry.
I just wanted to clarify. It's like we had petitioned the city before, and there is a 25-mile-an-hour speed limit on Centenary Avenue, and it's posted.
Oh, it is?
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other thoughts? Any other comments? For or against? Insights? Okay.
That's the clerk is telling me.
Okay, all right.
Whoops, somebody coming.
I just want to reiterate that we're for the no parking, but it's off the street, so people can still park on our property. And then also, we do need to be able to do 15-minute loading, and obviously a truck would get out of the way if there was any kind of an emergency. It happens all over the place where people park for short periods of time, and no parking loading areas, stuff like that. I mean, the reason those rocks are there is so that people don't park there. So I think people might be confused as to what we're trying to accomplish, because I think they're so used to being against us that we're actually with them on this, so it's a little bit of a funny situation.
Thank you. Okay. Council? Anybody? Suggestion? Oh, yes, sir.
Dick Myers speaking. I own Aqua Marina. I'm just curious, is there any reason why the other end of the street can't be opened up? I mean, it's actually against the law to have a street that long with one exit. I mean, it's over 1,200 linear feet, so why is there a gate at the other end? Why not open it up? And I would like to see it less than 25 miles an hour, or at least somebody enforce it, because during Motorcycle Week, I have been present when bikes are going 35 to 55 miles an hour on Centenary Ave and on Scenic Ave. As you know, 2 years ago, there was a gentleman who was killed going over 110 miles an hour. I would like to see that posted, and I would like to see it enforced a little bit. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, in the essence of time, we need to...
I'd like to put this on hold and meet other than a meeting night and try to find out more answers from the city on some of these streets.
I just hate to create a parking nightmare for Morris Avenue and Haven Avenue and all of those avenues by creating a no parking zone on Centenary at this time. And I think we just ought to put this all together and take a more comprehensive look at it.
Is there a motion? Is that a motion then, or is that that is a motion?
I think that was
Okay.
Armin's motion. I second it.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Aye.
Unanimous. Okay, we'll put that out and we'll further study. I guess we'll recommend that at council for that. And if there's no other business to come before this committee meeting, we're going to call it adjourned at...
Make that motion.
There you go. Sorry?
I make that motion.
Okay.
You don't?